Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So, just a quick note. Let me mute some people. Just a quick note. I'm actually on my. Okay, this is fine. I'm actually on my friend's computer, and so because of that, the stream may be a little laggy, or the audio may be a little weird in the recording. So if you're listening to the recording, hopefully you can hear me all right. On YouTube, that is. And if you're in the Discord right now, welcome in. This is workshop number 2, and we're going to be going over chapter 2 of the beginner DAP course. So I guess without further ado, let's dive into it. And if you have any questions, also, feel free to ask in the classroom chat at any point. I'll be answering those questions throughout the session. Hey everybody. Hey Brad. Oh yeah, Cheetah, no worries. Yeah, it should be recorded. Hey generous kid, thanks for joining as always. And Ilfat, welcome. All right, so I'm hoping it's not too laggy, but what we're gonna do is start with chapter 2, day 2. So during the last workshop, we actually ended at chapter 2, day 1. And that was, basic setup. We wanted to set up our DAP. We wanted to, install Git, so all the boring stuff. But today we actually get to start, coding and changing our DAP around to make it kind of cool. Also, hold on, there's some people that are unmuted. People. Okay, cool. So yeah, so let's start learning some front-end code. So if you remember from chapter 2, day 1, front-end code is what's displayed on the screen, right? That's what we're seeing. That's this welcome to Next.js sign. That's if we click Next.js, it takes us to a site. All this is front-end code. What's being displayed on the screen. So we're going to be diving into that a little bit today. And if you want to take it, take some of this learning beyond just this workshop or this boot camp or this course, what we're really learning here is HTML and CSS. So HTML is what is being displayed on the screen. So for example, these letters or these words, this link, but the CSS is how it's being displayed. So that means, the fact that this is blue, the fact that this is in a box, the fact that this is highlighted. So the CSS is the styling, the HTML is more the skeleton structure. So that's what we're going to be learning today, HTML and CSS. So what I'm going to be working off of is the DAP that we had last time. So, this basic Next.js project. And the first step that it tells us to do inside of our course here is to remove some boilerplate code. So remember, I was telling you last time that inside the index.js file, this is where, this is what's displayed on the home screen. So if we were to go to our home screen here, you would see it says welcome to Next.js, and that is inside our code right here, right? Welcome to Next.js. So we're going to remove some of this boilerplate code and replace it with what it tells us to inside here. So we can actually, I think can we copy this? I think it gave us, no, okay, yeah. We can actually copy this. We can remove everything inside index.js and paste this, okay? And if we do that, we should see that our DAP looks a bit different, right? It now says, welcome to my Emerald DAP. Now, I would have liked to explain what the previous setup was doing, but I think it's simpler if we start from a less complex example and work our way up, right? So we learn what this is doing and also some basic styling. So before I explain everything, we're also going to import some styles. So what we had copied before was HTML code, right? This is all the HTML stuff. And what we're going to be copying now is the CSS, so the styling. So take a look at what it looks like right now. And then we're going to go to our styles globals.css. And what is it? Wait, is this supposed to, what did I say? Oh, no, inside the module. So let's go to the module and paste it here, okay? Save it, and let's go back to our DAP. And we should see it looks a little bit different, right? This Emerald DAP is now green. It's also not highlighting when we hover over it. So it changed a little bit, right? We changed the color of this Emerald DAP. All right. So now let's go ahead and explain, what all this means, and pretty much, the rest of this, this day is going to be understanding exactly what we did. So first of all, let's start inside the index.js file. So what's going on here is, realistically, inside this index.js file, we're exporting something called a component. Now, a component you can think of as like a little box or a little object that's being rendered on the screen. Now, when we say rendered, when something is rendered on the screen, that means it's being put on the screen. So, this is being rendered on the screen, as we call it. Okay, this text is being rendered on our application here. So, inside of this file, we're exporting a component called home. So a component is really a function, right? A function is just a piece of code that does something when called. But in Next.js land or in React world, this is called a component. So we're exporting, and we're exporting it so that this file can read it. We're exporting a function or a component called home, and we're opening up curly brackets, to open up our component. Now, inside of a component, what you return is what's rendered on the screen. So we're returning, and then we open up parentheses, and inside those parentheses is HTML code. So this is all JavaScript, right? The importing, the function home, that's all basic JavaScript. What's inside here, this is the HTML code. So this is what's rendered on the screen. And because we want to render it on the screen, we put it in the return function of our component, okay? So what we're doing is we're rendering this main div block. The div block is the, containing, little object. You can think of div blocks as almost like, actually, this is a horrible analogy, but this is what my teacher gave me in 9th grade. He said a div block is like a pencil cup, and you put pencils inside of it. So I don't know why he said that, but if it helps, that's what I learned in high school. So a div block, the way that I would explain it is it's basically like a container for other things. So in this case, we're returning a main div block, and inside the div block, we have other things that we want to render on the screen. So, and the reason, by the way, that we need a div block is because you can't return multiple things. You can't render multiple things. You'll see we get an error here, right? If we try to, if we have this little head, we call this a tag, right? So each of these little things inside the curly whatever's, or what is this called? Angled brackets. Each thing inside here, this is called a tag. So this is a head tag. This is a title tag. This is a meta tag. You can't return, 2 tags at the same level. So in order to fix this error, we have to wrap it in a div. You can only return 1 tag. Okay. So that's why we have the containing div. Now inside this div, and also for the record right now, ignore class name. That's CSS. We're going to get to that in a second. But so inside this div, or inside this container, we have this head tag. Now this head tag is being imported, right? This is JavaScript. It's being imported from next/head. This is a built-in Next.js library. So this is what allows us to change the thing at the top here. So you'll notice if we look way up top, right, this says Emerald DApp, and it has a little icon on it. That's all because of this little head tag. So if I was to change this to, courtside, and save it, you would notice that this is now changed to courtside. So this is all coming from this head tag, okay? Now, the meta, this description created by Emerald Academy, this is so that if I send it, actually, I believe this won't work, but I'm going to try this anyway. If I send it in here, what is it going to say? Okay, no, it doesn't work with localhost, but the point of this is that, by the way, this won't do anything if you click it. It's because it's on my local computer. But basically what this means is that if I was to send this inside of like a channel or on Twitter or something, it would display this as the description. So actually, let me try and do something else. Let me try and send this. Okay, let's try and send that and see what happens. So you see how what came up? It came up with a name and then a little description under it. That description is what's written right here in this content thing right here. Okay. Now this link, this is the link, and we say rel equals icon, and we provide an imgur link. This is what's displayed as a little icon here. So basically everything inside this head tag is what's being displayed up top. So I see you were coding in 9th grade. Yes, I was coding. I started coding in 9th grade. That's when I learned Java actually, and HTML. So when I first started coding, this is what I was learning. If God is teaching, can we become God? No, definitely not. You will always be inferior to me. That is something that you're going to have to accept. Sorry, cat. But you are the God of art, so I will never be as good of an artist as you. All right, so that is the head tag. Now, if we go a little bit below, we have something called the main tag. Now, the main tag is something that you really only want to use one time, and this is for the main part of your application. The truth is, this confused me for a long time. that what you use as a tag doesn't really matter. If we were to make this a div, it's the exact same thing. The reason we call it main is just because it improves readability, so that if someone were to go to this code, they would be able to see, oh, wait a minute, there's a main tag here. This is probably what the developer wants me to pay attention to. So again, there's no real difference. You can make this a div or some other container, but the reason we make it a main is because it helps people that are reading your code understand your intentions here, okay? So they're like, okay, this is the main part of the code, okay? And then inside that main, we have a H1 tag. Now, an H1 is the top level header. So this is the biggest and the boldest header that you have in an application. So usually you reserve that for things at the top or at the main part. For example, let's go to touchstone.city, just to give you an example. So this right here is an example of an H1 tag. So it's the main part. It's the biggest part that you want people to see. So H1 is, would be here, okay? And maybe this would be something like an H2. So an H2 is slightly, smaller, but it's still a header. Actually, no, this would probably be so this would be like an H1, and this would be like an H2, okay? So just to give you an example of what that looks like. So we make this an H1. Now we say welcome. Inside that H1, we say welcome to my, Emerald dApp. And inside this H1, we have an A tag. Now an A tag, can anyone guess what it is? So if I click on Emerald dApp, it links me somewhere. Can anyone guess what the A tag is doing here? What is the A tag doing? And remember, the A tag is surrounding Emerald dApp here. So if Emerald dApp, what is the A tag doing for us? Yeah, it's a link, like Fosque says, it's a link. So A, when you surround something with an A tag, it's a link. So in this case, we're saying A, and then you put this little attribute, these are called attributes, these things in green that are inside of a tag. So the href attribute, you equal that to a link, okay? And if you notice, when we click on Emerald dApp, it's opening a new tab. The reason it's opening a new tab is because we put target equals _ blank. If we took this away and saved it, let's go back, you'll notice that it's when I click this, it's going to change it in the same tab. But if we add a target _ blank here, it's going to open it instead of a new tab, all right? So that's what that's doing. So that is the HTML code. That's the basic HTML code here. And let's go to the styles for a second. So the styles, let's take a look. So inside of a CSS file, you'll notice that code is written very differently. It looks kind of weird, but you'll get used to it. You write things almost in like little blocks. So what's happening here is I'll show you what each of these means. So in this case, inside of this div, we have a class name that equals styles.container. Now, if you'll notice, styles is being imported from this home.module.css file. Now, if you read this chapter already, you'll know that a module CSS file is only applied to the styles that it's imported in. So in this case, because this styles is imported, this module, right, this home module is imported into this file, we can use styles.something to access that certain style, right? So in this case, when we're saying class name, now class name means that this tag is going to have this style. So class name equals styles.container. Now that's coming from, well, I guess do we not have that? Okay. Well, it looks like that's not doing anything yet, but this will do something. I think that's why I put there. This will do something. I guess we should start with here. So styles.main. So inside our CSS file, we say .main. Now, .main means this is a class name of main. So actually, how do you comment inside of a CSS file? I kind of forget. Oh, I think it's this, right? Yeah. So this, .main means a class called main. Okay. Similarly, this means .title means a class called title. Now, where this differs is something where you put like a P, and this just means any P tag. Okay, so this is any P tag. So this will apply to any P tag, or you could put main, right? This will apply to any main tag, or div. This will apply to any div tag. But the dot in front means a class. So in this case, this means any component that has a class name of main. This means any component that has a class name of title. And this means any component that is an A tag that is a class name of title. So if we go back to here, right, we'll notice that this A tag is inside of a component that has, the title class name. So that's going to apply to that one right there. Okay, so let's walk through these from the beginning. So because our our main here has a class name of main, we can say, okay, the height of this is 100 VH. Now 100 VH means the entire height of the screen. So that's what VH means. And this goes from 0 to 100. So 100 means the entire height of the screen. Okay, so I'll put a little comment here that VH means the height of the screen. Now, display flex, justify content center, and align item center, these three just make everything appear in the middle. So you'll notice we have a whole screen here, and this text is being displayed right in the middle because we're, it's display flex, and we're, justifying the content as center and aligning the items as center. Now, one piece of advice I'd give you is if you're really trying to learn CSS, this is a DApp course in the sense that I'm trying to teach you how to take dApps and connect the blockchain to it and give you basic front-end experience. If you're really trying to learn exactly what each of these means, I really recommend looking them up and going through CSS tutorials, because you're never going to learn. Basically, I think you're never going to learn CSS unless you actually do it yourself. So if you're really trying to learn CSS, don't do it through this course. Do it through, like an external website, because you'll learn a lot more doing it yourself. But essentially, what these are doing is they're displaying these the text in the middle of the screen. Now, what this is saying is that anything with a class name of title has a font size of 50 pixels. Pixels is just some measurement. We can make it smaller if we wanted to, but if we look here, this H1 has a class name of title. So if we were to change this to, 10 pixels, you would notice that now this is really small, right? Because it's so low. But if we were to increase it back to 50, it's big again, okay? And .title A means any A tag that's inside of the title class name. This has a color, the emerald color, and text decoration none. What text decoration none means is that when we hover over this, there's no underscore. But if I was to get rid of this for a second and save that, you'll notice that now for some reason it's not. Did it just not save? Okay, that's weird. Maybe it's because it's in my global. Okay, that's why. If I was to, see now if I hover over it, now there's an underscore, but I think it kind of looks weird and maybe a little bit ugly. So I just keep that in there, okay? So, and that's why it has this color. So that's basically what's going on. Do we have any questions about this so far? I see we have a lot of conversation in the chat. I love this, but I don't see any questions. So I think we should be good. Suricat's first language was C#. Wow. I don't know C#. Actually, no, I did do a little bit of C# when I did a bit of game development, but I'm assuming that's probably why you know C# because you like AI. W Falcons was assembly. Oh my God. I remember doing assembly in college. That was a little crazy. So hyperlinks automatically have an underline? Yes. So hyperlinks by default all have an underline. And to get rid of it, you have to target that little piece of that A tag and say text decoration none. And then it gets rid of it. Yep. It was VR in Unity? Yeah. I remember I coded a Pokemon game in Unity, and it was terrible, but it was like a Pokemon game that I made in C#, and it was like the worst thing I think I've ever done. But it was kind of cool. I like Pokemon, so. All right, so that is it for this day. So yeah, we're gonna move on to the next day, day 3. What's in day 3? Oh man, I have no idea. Oh my God, Jacob made Basic Beast for BZ. I did. Yep, it was connected to the blockchain and everything. I was minting NFTs. It was way better than Basic Beast. Yeah. So let me just see what I want to do here, because I completely forgot what I was supposed to be doing. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some JavaScript to our code. So remember, what I said so far is that this right here is HTML, right? Whereas this is all JavaScript. So we're going to try and connect the two. We're going to put JavaScript into HTML code, all right? So yeah, we're going to do that with a button. So I believe if I go back here, where did I want the button? Underneath the P tag? Oh, wait, what? Oh, I believe I was supposed to, yeah, I think in your request, you're supposed to have this P tag. So let me just throw that in here. Part of this course, by the way, is that it builds off the quest. So if you, like, for example, this was not here unless you do the quest, so you need to do that. But anyways, if we look at our application, it should be here. Oh, I think, okay, I'm actually going to get rid of this because you're supposed to do this in your quest, so I'm not going to give you the answer, okay? We're just going to go right to the button. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a button tag. Now, button tags are cool because they allow you to click things. So if I was to, what do I want to call this? Or what did I want to put in here? Hello. So I'm going to put hello in here, okay? And I'm going to save that and go back to our application. So when I click hello, and also, by the way, you're going to notice that inside here, it looks different. Like it's supposed to be ordered this way, but on mine, it's ordered this way. It's because you're supposed to answer that in your quest. So mine's going to look different right now, but that's because I haven't done the quest, okay? So when I can click this, right? It's a button. See I'm clicking it? Let me zoom in a little bit. Clicking it. All right, so I'm just clicking it a lot and nothing's happening. So, nothing should be happening. Now, what we can do is inside of our component, this is what's really cool about coding in ES6, or, basically just that's what's combining, JavaScript and HTML here. We can make a function called print hello. And this, remember, this is all JavaScript. This is not HTML. This is JavaScript code that we're putting inside of our component that we can maybe call inside of our HTML code. So we're going to say print hello. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do this thing called console.log. Now, this is arguably the most important thing you'll ever learn in programming is console log, and it's the most simple too, because it allows you to print things to the console. Now, what the console is if you right-click your screen and click inspect, right, then go to the top right, you'll see this console tab. If you click that, you're going to see a bunch of things being printed in your console. To clear this, you can click this little clear icon, and you'll see now it's empty. Now, the console is so helpful because it's the best way to debug your code. So if you are running a transaction or you're running a script and you want to just see the result without having to put it or print it in some HTML code, you can just print it to the console. So it's really useful. So what we'll do is every time, right, this button is clicked. Oh, and by the way, also, you'll notice that if you've ever interacted with me with one of our applications, so if you've ever said, Jacob, there's a bug on Float or there's a bug on Touchstone, I always ask you to right-click your screen, click inspect, and go to the console tab. And that's because on those applications, we actually print errors to the console. So sometimes if a user is having trouble, I'll ask the user to open up the console and tell me what the error is, because that's where we print errors, right to here. So what we want to do is every single time that we click this button, right, we want it to console.log hello. So how do we call this function from this button? The answer is we add an onClick attribute. So onClick equals, and we're going to put print hello. So what this means is every single time this button is clicked, we're going to equal it, and we're going to put the print hello function inside of it, okay? And it's going to console.log hello. So if we click hello, look, it's printing hello. And every single time I press it, it's going up in one count because, that's the amount of times it's being printed. So pretty cool, printing hello to the console. So we just connected some JavaScript code with HTML code, which is really sweet. All right, so that's that. What else did I want to do here? Okay, I think that's pretty good. Oh, is that it for? No way, is that it? Did we just do it that quickly? All right, I guess we're just legends like that. So one thing I'll show you also, and we're going to get into this later, but what if you want to pass in some arguments to this function, right? So the way to do that is, let's say we wanted to pass in like a greeting here, and we wanted to console.log the greeting. What you can't do is you can't, like, when you call a function and you call it by like passing in some argument like this, you can't do it like this. Now, the reason you can't do this is because, I don't know, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert. Like, you're sort of learning from a noob here. But from my experience, you can't do this because what's going to happen is this component is just going to get infinitely called. Or you'll see it gets called twice here. Now, what you actually have to do is when you're using an argument, you have to open up a function inside of here that calls print hello. So now, if we refresh the page and click hello, it only gets printed once, right? So what you want to do is when you're passing in an argument to a function, you want to open up your own function by putting parentheses and this arrow. This is ES6 syntax. Actually, I can show you what that looks like. So if we wanted to, let me show you what ES. So this is normal JavaScript, right? Now in ES6 syntax, you can also write a function like this. Const print hello equals a function, and you open this little arrow here. So you can sort of write functions in weird ways, but I prefer the function way because it just makes more sense. But anyways, when you're calling this on-click handler, I just like to use this little easy function where you open up parentheses and this little arrow that calls the print hello function with that argument. So yeah, okay, that is day 3. So any questions so far? The main point of this lesson was just to show you how to call some JavaScript function. Alrighty. Cool. So that seems to be good. Let's go to the next day. So that was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. But I guess that's a good thing. So now we're going to finish the skeleton. So I wonder, what does this mean? Okay. So now we're adding a navigation bar. Okay, that's going to be interesting. So as we say here, what is a website without a nav bar? Let's add one together. So let's create a new component. So it looks like, let's just walk through this together, I guess. So one solution to creating a new nav bar would be to just throw some more code into our pages. Okay, yeah. So the point here is that, when you're making your application, right, there's a lot of different parts to it. And let me pull up Touchstone again as an example. So right now, right, there's a nav bar, which is this whole top part. There's this, main part right here with all this text. There's this, really cool image. If we scroll down, there's another piece of the website, which is this rotating bar. There's, this image. There's this part that, look, this is scrolling, but this is staying still. That's a whole other, complicated aspect of it. There's this piece of code. The point is that, on a website, there's a lot of different, components, right? And we're using the term components because that's what it's called in code, that tie together to make a website. Now, if you're a good coder, or I guess we'll start if you're a bad coder, you would put all the code into one file. So, if you were a bad coder, you would put all of this code, because it's all on the main page, into the index.js file. But if you're a good coder, you separate things out into smaller components so that 1, it's easier to read, and 2, it's easier to code and find out where errors are if you get them, right? And also, the reason that we separate things into multiple different components is because it allows us to reuse code. So what's really cool is, for example, this is a perfect example, right? We have the emeralds component here and the Manaki planets component here. But you'll notice they're actually the exact same component, right? When I hover it, it does a certain thing. When I hover this, it does a certain thing. They're formatted the same. They look the same. The only difference is the content within, but that's not the point, right? The point is that this right here is a component that we use twice. So instead of, coding this and then copy and pasting the code to get this, we just have one component that we simply use twice to get these two things here, okay? So we can reuse a lot. And another example is like this button here. So this button is a component, right? This literally just this one button is a component that we use multiple times. Right here, right? We used it right here. We used it right here. So this component gets used a lot. So, also reusability is a huge part of, So with that lecture being said, let's go back to our application here and let's make a new folder called components. And inside this components folder, we're going to make a file called nav.jsx. And we're going to make a component inside of here. And this is going to be for the nav bar. So in base directory, right, make a new folder called components, and we're going to make a file called nav.jsx. After that, inside your styles folder, make a new file called nav.module.css, this will be the styling for our nav component. So let's go to styles here. Let's make a file called nav.module.css. And we're going to put all of our styles for the nav inside of here. See you, Siricat. Also, by the way, if we were doing this course in Svelte, this would be so much easier. But because BZ sort of tricked me into making this course in Next.js, styling is a little more complicated. I would really encourage you to learn some of the stuff in Svelte because it's a lot easier. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is, sorry, BZ, is after this course is over, I'm going to do a beginner DApp course in Svelte.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, because I think that it's really, learning Svelte is a really useful skill. I mean, in all fairness, I think learning Next.js is probably better for you right now because it's more industry standard. But I think personally, developing in Svelte is a lot easier. So I'm thinking about doing a course on that, that maybe even be taught by Andrea himself. So, yeah. Okay, so we did this. Cool. Yes, exactly, Simip. So also like Simip, sorry if I'm not saying that right, but what Simip is saying is that also if you get an error in your code, it's a lot easier to find that error if your components are split up. Whereas if it's one long piece of code, it's much harder to find where that error is taking place. So let's add some code. It says in our nav.jsx file, let's add this piece of code. Let's do it. Okay. And nothing's really happening. The only thing that we've done so far is we imported styles from the nav style, right? So that we can add some styles in the future. We also have this nav component here, right? We're creating a new component called nav, and we're rendering on the screen a nav tag. Now remember, this is the same exact thing as putting div or main, but it's a lot easier for us if we mark it as nav because it's readability, right? It helps the developer understand this is a part of the nav. So we did that. Now inside the nav tag, it wants us to put this. So let's add this code here. Now we already know what this does, right? The H1, says, okay, this is a header that says Emerald DApp, and a button is a button that says login. So if we go back to our application, nothing's happening, right? Now, why is nothing happening? I hope I get there in a second. Yep, I do get there in a second. So nothing's rendering on the screen. Does anyone have any ideas, even without knowing a lot about, HTML or why things are not working, why might nothing be displaying on the screen right now? Remember, which file is being displayed on the screen? Exactly. So index.js is being displayed on the screen, right? And there's zero mention of nav here. So we need to import nav to tell our code to display it on the screen. So if we add this piece of code, let's import the nav, all right? And then we're going to add, right before the main component, we're going to add nav. So let's do that. So right before the main component, we're going to add our nav tag. Okay. Now this looks a little bit different. You'll notice that with things like head, we have an opening and a closing tag. With nav, we just have an opening one that just closes itself. The reason for this is because we're not putting anything inside of it. So what this means is we're just taking everything that's being rendered right here and just putting it here. So it's very simple. Now, if we go back to our DApp, we should have some stuff being displayed at the top, which is pretty cool. All right, so now the nav is being displayed up there. So, okay, now, yeah, like I said, there's some extra functions here because this was in a quest. We haven't done the quest yet, of course, but, we'll keep moving. And our nav looks a little strange. It looks like this, right? So let's keep scrolling, and we're going to, this next section is called making it less ugly. So let's go into our nav module and paste this code. Now, this is, the styling for our nav. Now, of course, this isn't going to do anything yet. And why isn't this doing anything yet? What if we, of course, we just put some styling in here, but what have we not done inside of our nav, component? It's sort of like that, sweet. Yeah. So So we've imported the styles, right? But we haven't actually applied the style anywhere, right? This nav class name isn't being applied anywhere. So to apply it, we have to add a class name here, and we're going to say this equals styles.nav. And so now that we've applied it, now we get some interesting, little nav bar here, and it actually looks kind of nice. We have our little emerald dApp, and we also have our login button at the top right. So to explain that a little bit, display flex, what display flex will do, actually I'll take you through this. What display flex will do is it'll display them side by side. So if we don't have this, you'll notice that it displays it up and down. Display flex will make it so that they display next to each other, right? Now, the next part, justify content. Let's try that one. This is space around. So this is going to space them out across the length of the component. And then adjust line item center. This is going to make it so that they are centered vertically. So this header and this button are going to, display together as if they're centered vertically. So if I save this, now the login button is centered with the Emerald dApp. And again, if you really want to learn CSS, I would much rather send you off into the CSS void than try to learn from someone like me, because I'm definitely not an expert. Okay. So we did that. Now we're going to add an input field. Okay, so input is pretty interesting because we haven't covered this yet. And actually, let me just get a grasp of how much we're doing. Okay, so I think okay, so I know how to do this. So what we're going to do now is when we, sorry, I know I keep changing tabs a lot. I hope I'm not giving all of you seizures, but if we click inspect and click on console, when we click this hello button, you'll notice it's just printing hello. But what if we wanted to print something that we're typing into an input field, right? That's where input comes in. So if we go down to index.js, we're just going to put this here. I don't even know if this is where we're supposed to put it, but I'm going to put it here anyway. I'm going to put an input tag. Now, an input tag, you would never have like two brackets like this. For some reason, you always just close it on itself because you don't actually, unlike an H1 or a button where you put text inside of the component, an input is sort of, it's different in that we're typing things into an input field. So there's no like letters beside it or anything. I don't know, sort of a bad explanation, but you always just close it on itself. So an input field will open up this is what a basic input field looks like. We can type stuff into it, but it doesn't help, right? Nothing's actually happening. So one thing I would like to teach people is the placeholder attribute. So if we add a placeholder, we can actually say, I am very cool. And if I put that, then if we go back, it says, I am very cool. It's kind of hard to read, but it says it in there. But what we want to do is we want to type something in this input field, and then we want to store that variable somewhere so that when we click on hello, it prints what we typed. So ideally, we would type, I am very cool, and we would click hello, and it would print, I am very cool. Okay, but we have to store that in a variable somewhere. Now, the way that you do that inside of Next.js or JSX is you import something called use state from React. Now, what we can do is we can make a use state variable, and I'll show you how to do that and then explain it after I do it. So we say const, the name of the variable, and this is inside brackets, which is kind of strange, but the name of the variable, and then the name of the function that's going to change it, set greeting, equals use state, and then you can give it some base value. So we'll give it a base value of hello. Okay, so greeting is the variable we're going to store it in, and set greeting is what we're going to use to change the greeting variable. So kind of weird, but that's how it works. So right now, if we get rid of this, let's get rid of this parameter, let's get rid of this function and just simply say print hello, right? If we console.log greeting, now remember, greeting is coming from here. Because the default value of greeting is hello, if we clear this and click hello, it's going to print hello because that is the default value of greeting here. But what if we want to change it? And not only change it, what if we want to change it to what we're typing inside the input field? So in the input, we're going to put on change. So remember, with like a button, we put on click, and that gets run if we click it. On change gets run when the input changes, so when we type things in. So on change, we're going to make a little function here using our arrow function. and we're going to call set greeting, which is the function that changes greeting. And what we're going to change it to is whatever we type into the input. Now, what we type in the input actually gets passed in as this variable e here, and it's e.target.value. So a little strange, but basically that's how you access what you typed into the input field. It's we pass this little, this is actually like an event, but sometimes people abbreviate it as E. And we're taking in the event, and the event has a target value, it has a target attribute, and on the target is the value that is actually what we typed into the input field. So when we type something in the input field, it's going to call the onChange. It's going to set greeting to the value of what we're typing in. And then, theoretically, if everything works well, when we console.log the greeting, it should be whatever we typed in. So let's try it. Let's type in Jacob and let's click hello, and it prints Jacob, right? So everything's working. And if we type sweet, it prints sweet. So pretty cool, right? And if we refresh the page, it gets reset. So now if we click hello again, it's back to hello. All right, so I believe that's it for chapter 2. So how's everyone doing? Terrible? Pretty good? Amazing? Great. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I'm glad you said that, Sweet, because the truth is you're not supposed to understand everything completely. In fact, if you did, I would be weirded out as to how much of a genius you were. But not that you're not a genius, but I think that these are the types of things that, they really require you to sit down and, study. And you're not going to get this in one spin. So as always, I think the number one way to improve your understanding is to do it yourself, right? Don't look up a tutorial. Don't go down the 2-hour-long React course tutorial wave. Don't do that. My number one suggestion is to do the quest, play around with it, and then say to yourself, okay, what if I want to make this blue, right? Make it blue. What if I want this input field to be bigger? Make it bigger, right? What if I want this to be smaller, right? You tell yourself to do certain things and you challenge yourself that way. And if you look things up, you go to Stack Overflow, you ask in the Emerald Academy forum, that's how you really learn and improve. So, do it yourself. So with that being said, that's actually all I have for today. The reason I'm stopping there is because the next chapter, chapter 3, actually goes into smart contract stuff. So if you've already done the beginner cadence bootcamp, remember you're already going to understand day 1 and day 2. So if you've done the beginner cadence bootcamp, you might want to just go ahead right to day 3. If you haven't, make sure to do all these. Yeah, also my YouTube channel is a gold mine for flow stuff. So anyways, here is the float for today. The code is DAP. So go ahead, claim your float for attending today's workshop. And if that's it, you're feel free to head out. That's all there is for today. And what is it, Monday? Wow, we got a whole week ahead of us, everybody. So enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll see you again on, Wednesday? Same time? So Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we'll try and cover chapter 3, or at least the first 2 days. Oh, thanks so much, Sweet. Thanks for coming. It's such a pleasure having you here. Time to graduate? Yeah, Fosca, you went quick. Good for you. I knew you would go quick, though, because you already knew a lot of that stuff. So that's awesome. Applause to Fosca. Woohoo. I still have to make the float certificate actually for that. BZ, I think, finished first, right? And then Fosca.
Sorry, what?
Oh, I got number 0. Oh, nice, Falcon. I was just saying I still have to make the float certificate for you for completing the DAP course.
Oh, I get 0.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, of course, that's if I don't get it, but I'll do a random number generator and let you know the result.
Damn.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's it. All right, enjoy the rest of your Mondays. If it's Monday night, then get some sleep. And I'll see you all on Wednesday. I'll post it in the event, in the event part of the Discord. So see you then, and ask any questions you have inside the main forum. Right, always ask in the main forum. So thanks everyone. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you Wednesday. Peace out.